Hispanic Patriots, and welcome to another edition of the podcast Hispanic Patriot, a weekly broadcast live from a secret and undisclosed location deep behind enemy lines here in Denver, Colorado. Here we speak the truth and nothing but the truth, so help us God. And now, without further ado, our hosts Nicholas Razzo and Hugo Chavez. Ray, give it up for Nick and Hugo.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show, the Boomer of the Millennial. And we've got a lot on our plate tonight. Lots in the news. We'll be covering some topics as we go along. One of the things that's we've been keeping tabs on, of course, is the trial of President Trump, or I should say the kangaroo court of President Trump in New York City. Looks like the case may be blowing up, as most legal experts had predicted, and this thing may be over much quicker than anticipated. And his other cases around the country, the one in D.C., Georgia, and Florida, look like they're falling apart as well, or at least will not see the light of day before the election, which means they'll be dead in the water, because once we elect President Trump, he'll be able to basically shut down all the attempts to try to dismiss him as a candidate and as our presidential nominee. So anyway, that's what's going on with some things there. We got some things to cover here in Colorado. How you been, Nick? Got any thoughts on what's going on?
Well, honestly, I'm talking to my Democrat friends, my right-wing friends, and nobody thinks this Trump thing should be happening. And there's one big reason for it, is because especially I have a lot of friends from immigrant communities, and they say this is what looks like what we ran away from. This sort of like kangaroo court, like you said, clearly politicized judiciary. This is what happens in other countries that we flee from, to get rid of people that people don't like on the ballot. That's not fair.
Political
That's not right
persecution. That's what it is.
Exactly, and we used to be above that in this country. We really used to. Like, we used to say, okay, just fight it out in the court of public opinion. Let the elections happen. One of our first presidents tried to do this. I think it might have been John Adams. Tried to put a guy in jail, and he ran from jail anyways, and they let him out because, like, okay, this isn't going to work. So if that didn't work in the beginning of our history, I don't know why anybody's going to think that it's going to work now. And if it does work now, that's a bad thing for our country, people. That's what we have to understand. We want Trump to win these court cases, or have them not, have him win by them not coming to him, because it means our country has a free electoral system. That's a big reason, not just because it's just, not just because we support Trump, but because it's what's best for our country.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's not biased in some way has to understand that the American people are pretty fair-minded for the most part, except for the radical left that is going to do whatever it takes to try to eliminate Trump from even being an opponent. But yeah, this is the kind of stuff you see in banana republics and other despot nations. So it's been that way from the beginning. I was actually surprised that I heard Judge Merchan kind of upset about the testimony that Stormy Daniels gave yesterday, because he had warned the prosecution about what she could and couldn't testify about, and they just ignored him. And she testified about a lot of stuff that wasn't supposed to be in there.
So, I don't know why they thought a porn star running her mouth was a good idea, but it's okay. Everyone makes mistakes, I guess.
Well, I don't think it was a mistake. They thought they could just ramrod through the testimony, and then and it looks like it may be backfiring on them. And it would be very, very interesting to see this biased judge, actually, who is really biased against Trump, turn around and declare a mistrial,
because he's forced to,
and blow up the case. He'd probably be biting his tongue doing it, but
But he'll have to do it. I mean, that's what justice demands.
And this whole thing is set up for a crash in the appeals level anyway. So regardless of what takes place, if they proceed with it, when it reaches the appeals level, this thing's going to get blown up
I
big
mean, let's
time.
be honest of what it really is. It's about sending mud onto Trump and hoping it sticks. It's just to get people to say, "Oh, I can't vote for that man." That's really all it is. They say
That's it.
if it doesn't work to get him thrown in jail, if it doesn't work to make him broke, they want the bare minimum of
That
what they
really
think.
is that's really all about. It is about is to discredit Trump, make him look like a weak candidate, and reach those people out there that are not paying attention and don't understand that this is really a persecution,
Yeah.
not a prosecution.
It wouldn't be
And
happening at all if Trump wasn't a strong candidate. That's the last thing I got to say. They wouldn't even be doing this if they didn't fear Trump.
yeah, well, they definitely fear him, and the media is, of course, on board with anything and everything. They're not looking to do anything with regards to helping President Trump, and of course, they lie through their teeth.
Well, it doesn't make the money either to help Trump. None of their supporters or advertisers are going to support that. So, when you add the money trail, things make even more sense.
Yeah. Did you see the video about Morning Joe? He was saying how concerned he was about Melania and Ivanka hearing
Oh
this
my goodness.
testimony from this porn star that basically has written twice that the affair never happened, but now she's the star witness.
Well, and what
You know,
Trump, did stuff with the one lady, in the broom closet or whatever. Is this, third-rate porn star when he's got the wife and kids that he has? It's all tabloids. It's so tabloids. You'd have to be, a Desperate Housewives enjoyer. Not as anything wrong with it, but you'd have to be the kind of person to believe that kind of stuff is actually real. That it's not just TV. That it's not just reality TV. In order to believe it's really true. And let's be honest, the Democrats, this is one reason that I would never become a Democrat is they think you're stupid. And I know that's harsh, but I've been around a lot of high profile Democrats a lot of my life. A lot of them kind of look down on the average person. They say, "Oh, this is what the people want." No, most working class people have very high level of self-education, very high level of aspiration, and very high level of knowing how to smell through BS. We wouldn't be able to survive in the class that we do, in the country we do, in the place that we do, without being able to smell that stuff out.
and
So,
Hollywood, I saw on the View today, not the View, I'm sorry, the Five today. Um, the um, the actor John
like
Leguizamo,
Wazana, yeah, or something like that.
he was being interviewed on a podcast, and they asked him, "Why do you think Hispanics are turning to Trump?" And he said, "Because the Democrats take us for granted."
Yeah,
And and he said, "No more." People, when they see this kind of trial and stuff, he said it reminds them of Venezuela, Colombia, and Cuba.
yeah. How
And
Mexico was 20 years ago, 50 years ago, too.
yep. So yeah, people are paying attention, and even the Hollywood types are coming out now and saying, this is a circus, and we're not voting for the Democrats this
No.
time around, and that's what scares the Democrats.
Well, the last thing I'll say on that is another reason that we think differently now. We listen to this. We listen to the heart and we listen to the head. We don't exclude what you know your gut feeling is. When you know something's wrong, we know it's wrong. You see something wrong, say something. That's how we do.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, so tonight we have a good friend of mine, guest, Mr. Stephen Varela from Pueblo. He's a current state of Board of Education member for that district down there, and he's also a candidate for Congressional District 3. Now, Stephen is a transplant for California. We won't hold that against him.
A welcome transplant.
Yeah, and a former Democrat, as am I. So, I'm not going to jump on him for having this common sense to come over to the right
Certainly
side.
not with his military training. We wouldn't jump on
Yep.
him at all.
He's a veteran, a fellow veteran. And so, we have invited him on tonight to speak about his campaign, maybe a little bit about some of the things going on with the Board of Education. And let's bring Stephen on now for our guests. We may not have video with Stephen tonight, but he's on for sound. So, Stephen, are you with us?
I am with you. Thank you, Hugo, for having me. I appreciate it. And this is so important to what you guys are talking about. We really need to make sure that we're educating folks out there, especially in the Latino community, is really engaging them.
Yeah. So tell us, give us a little bit of background for the audience. Tell us who you are, where you come from, what you stand for, and then we'll get into some questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Hugo. I appreciate it. Well, I'm Stephen Varela. I live down in Pueblo, Colorado. I currently represent you guys for the State Board of Education. I'm one of 9 members. So you have myself, Lauren Bober, and Glenn Gagos. We are your 3CD3 representatives. Glenn is the CU regent. I jumped into this current race running for Congress. I've been excited, went feet first at it. I'm a former Democrat, like you said. And I'll tell you, when I was a Democrat, I was actually really involved, and it took me a moment to realize that that party was really robbing us of prosperity, economic development, and community reinvestment. And I came over to the Republican Party, and I came over with a lot of excitement. And we were actually able down in Pueblo for the first time in almost 90 years. Not one Democrat was elected. We took a mayor seat for the first time in 100 years. We took 2 school board seats, and we took a majority on council. So we've had a lot of success in the Pueblo area and just really meeting with a lot of Latino voters. Myself, I served 2 tours in Operation Iraq Freedom. Excuse me, Operation Iraq Freedom. I came back from my second deployment, moved to Colorado, met my wife in the Army, jumping out of airplanes in airborne school. She was a combat medic. So I always
Beautiful.
tell people, I go, you think I'm tough? You got to meet her. And she's a nurse. Nurses are real tough.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
Right.
God bless you, man. That's beautiful.
Oh,
So,
thank you. I appreciate it.
so just quick correction: Lauren Boebert is the current seat holder in CD3, but she's not a candidate in CD3.
That is correct. She's a current seat holder, and she is a candidate in CD4. And
Right.
actually, that's what inspired me to jump in. I didn't want to challenge Lauren, primary her like some of the other candidates, but when
Right.
she vacated it, I jumped in the race.
All right. Well, you've been in social media discussion quite a bit because I've been around the circuit and I've seen some things going on with some folks. We won't mention too many names, but from folks from one of your opponents that have attempted to disparage you by one of them actually called you a liar, and I took offense to that, and I jumped in
It's
and
a
said
serious accusation.
I know Stephen very well, and one thing he's not is a liar. You know, you may not agree with his positions on certain issues or whatever, but to call somebody a liar, that's pretty bold. But then I found out that they were part of a campaign of one of your opponents. So that's to be expected. But really, I was telling Nick a little earlier that that's one of the things that bugs me is among Republicans, we shouldn't be doing that. We should be talking about what we stand for. The candidates, meaning they should be talking about what they stand for, what their issues are, and what they intend to do to serve the people of that district, as opposed to trying to disparage or demean, a fellow Republican opponent. So that's my position on that. I'm kind of fed up with people that are doing that, and I have no problem calling them out on social media. But talk a little bit about the part that they've been publishing out there, so that we can get that out of the way, and that is the part where they're claiming that you've changed registration 18 times between Republican and Democrat.
No, thank you for bringing that up, Hugo, and I'm glad you did. It's very important because we've been working as a team to make sure that the facts get out there. And one of the things is no, I did not change 18 times. And actually, we just released a new document from the Secretary of State's website that shows my actual voting history. Some of these guys were fabricating documentation, and it's unfortunate that they were doing that. But the reality is, I come from Pueblo County, where we had one of the most corrupt clerk and recorders, and I say past tense. And this gentleman was the one who trained Jenna Griswold. He created the whole gold standard kind of communication or verbiage. And I always tell folks, coming out of Pueblo, some of our highest performing, or where most votes come out of, are two precincts, which are the two cemeteries. Um,
Very good one.
That's,
and guess what? They all vote Democrat early and often.
Funny how that always works.
but it was funny because I was actually just down in Otero County, and one of my opponents was there with the state party secretary, and she's working on one of my opponent's campaigns, and she came after me and she's like, "You changed your party," and she was just going, and I go, "It's right here, it's clear." I go, "You've seen that it's not true," and she just kept going at it, and used a lot of foul language. She even,
Oh,
went after our county party chair in Otero, and same thing with our Pueblo County chair. And it's unfortunate because you bring up a very good point. One thing that we've done very well as Republicans is we circle the wagon and then we shoot inward.
that's true.
that's a good way of putting it.
I call it
Nope,
the
you
circular
got
firing
froze up. You
squad.
still
All
there?
right. Well, to change your registration 18 times sounds like a massive annoyance. I don't know anybody who would put themselves through that. Like that, I
Yeah.
don't even know. The accusation doesn't sound plausible on face value to me.
Oh,
Like
can you guys
it
hear me?
sounds like something you say because it sounds good, but really, like
Yeah, the one thing that I'm not a. Did we lose him?
we might have lost him. I know he's at the is
Okay. Well, the
voter
one
form
thing I
right
was
now.
going to say is that I'm not a big fan of mail-in voting. I think people should vote
Go, you guys.
uh, live.
We got you, man. We got you.
Sorry about that. It kind of
Uh,
froze
No,
up.
don't worry about it.
I don't know if you
I was
guys
just
heard.
saying.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying that I'm not a big fan of mail-in voting. I wish we didn't have it. I wish we'd get back to regular voting at the polls, and that we would be able to implement voter ID. Where do you stand on voter ID, Stephen? Tell me.
You know what? That's important. And I'll tell you one of the things. I work with a group out of Mesa County. Good friends of mine. They actually took the name and now they call themselves the gold standard because they're the election integrity folks. And I go, I love that. I go, what a right way to talk about it. And there's some of them are from a group called Stands for the Constitution, and they've really enlightened me on something. And it's so important because we were talking about the history of voter fraud and the big cheats, as we call them. If you look at Chicago, you had Richard Daley that would say vote early, vote often. You look
Our
in
man from
Russia.
back home.
Yeah, there you go. You had Putin that would say it doesn't matter who casts the vote, it's who counts the vote.
Yep.
And I keep telling folks we got to start looking at what's going on. Is machines are machines. Machines are generally not made corrupt. People corrupt machines.
Correct.
And we have to get to the cause, not the symptom. And that is a problem that I've noticed when we talk about election integrity is we get so focused on the symptom of integrity is the stolen election or the machine that was corrupted, but we don't go after the actual people that are implementing it. All politics are local. And I say that so importantly because there's counties where county commissioners are voting to keep certain systems that are in place. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And they could be a R county or a D county. So I think what needs to happen is more folks need to start getting engaged, getting involved, and start voting in people that believe in what they believe in. We have for too often just become sheep. We're Republicans. We're warriors. We're the party of freedom. We should never surrender. We should start fighting back and that's what my campaign is, the freedom fighters. We should take
Beautiful.
our state back, our county back, our districts back, because until we stand up, we will never have a voice.
That's
I couldn't
true.
agree more, Stephen. That was a beautiful way of putting it. And in respect to your military history, I was president of my military history club in high school. I absolutely love applying military logic to situations, and I think that we Republicans we're kind of in the foxholes right now. We think we're getting shelled really hard, but if we just pick our heads up and understand, no, we absolutely can make that charge, and together we'll be able to make it. I see a lot. I agree. The sheepishness, I think, is very much a symptom of, like you said, the cowardice, or rather you said it's a symptom and we're not dealing with root causes. That's a huge, huge thing we're doing. Again, when you're in the foxhole, you're only shooting at what as the symptom, the fire back. You're not going out and taking that position. You're not going after the root cause. So I couldn't agree more. Drive into what is actually attacking us so that everyone can feel safer. That's what it's about.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
So, what? Tell us a little bit about why you jumped into the race. I know that you said you wouldn't have challenged Lauren if she was still in that district, but aside from that, tell us why you decided to throw your hat in that race and what you would hope to accomplish going to Congress in that district.
Thank you. Great question again. And I'll tell you why I jumped in. I have 4 kids. My oldest is a sophomore in high school. My youngest is my daughter. She's in 3rd grade. And I look at them, they're the future. And why was I inspired to make this move is being on the State Board of Education. I've learned something and I've seen it applied. If you educate a generation, you shape your future. And right now we have a generation of kids that don't respect the flag. We have a generation of kids that don't understand how important it is to be American, how powerful we are, and they don't even like the idea, the foundation of our Americanism, which is capitalism. You have kids that believe it's racist, and I tell them that's not racist. Capitalism is the greatest equalizer. When I see all those things transpiring in our next generation, like Reagan said best, we are one generation away from losing our freedom, and I believe we're living in it, and we have to start fighting back. So that was part of my inspiration of where I'm at. And why did I not challenge an incumbent? Because our party right now, we are hurting. We cannot afford to fight each other more than we are. The Democrats, like Saul Alinsky, if any of you guys know Saul Alinsky,
Yep,
taught
rules
one
for
thing.
radicals.
Rules for radicals. He said the only way to destroy a system is from within. You
Yep.
disrupt it. Where there's chaos, there's opportunity. Well, the Democrats have created chaos in our party. We have bought into their cancel culture. We call each other rhinos. When do we start doing name calling? When I was a Democrat, they called each other dinos. And we're doing the same thing they're doing. We have started to use their playbooks. Even if you look at the Republican candidates in the state party with their Rhino Watch that has been attacking me has come from, and I should rephrase that, not the state party, the actual state party, but there's Democrat blog within the state party that has its Rhino Watch. They've come after me using Democrat talking points. They referenced the Denver Post. Why are we not opening our eyes and saying, wait a minute, we have been infiltrated? But instead of doing that, we look at each other and we it's like that back to that sheep mentality. We point at each other and say, well, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're the problem. You're the problem. So for me, it wasn't the right thing to challenge an incumbent because that's what the enemy wants. And when Lauren left, it was an easy move for me. I've already represent the district for education. I visited almost all of my school districts that I had in the counties. And I said, it's time. If not now, then when? If not me, then who? And
Oh, Hillel, that's beautiful.
exactly. And the other question came to me was, what kind of Republican are you? And I looked around. I said, I'm a Vince Lombardi Republican. Winning isn't everything. It's the only thing. Because if we don't win, we don't legislate.
There it is.
Yep. Yeah, I by the way, since you mentioned Vince, I operate on Lombardi time. If you're 15 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late.
I can attest to that. He's very strict about that. Well, if Steven's a soldier over here, he won't have any trouble with that.
Yeah.
No trouble at all.
So tell us a little bit about what's going on with the Board of Education. Anything we should know as far as I know I just saw something that I read about, and I can't remember what the issue was that the Board of Education was voting on something.
Yes. What's the recent news?
Yeah, no, I'll fill you in. One thing about the Board of Education that's really interesting is one, Colorado, we're very unique. We're the only state where our state Board of Education is constitutional. We don't work for the legislature, we don't work for the governor. And because in Colorado are 3 constitutional elected areas, our governor, our legislature, and our state board of ed, because there's not a Republican governor, and there's not a speaker of the House that's a Republican, and there's not a Senate president. Your 3 state board of ed members are your highest elected state elected Republicans. So myself, Steve Durham, and Deb Shuffle, which follow the federal seats, which is Lawrence, Lamborns, and Bucks, the current representatives of each one. So 3, 5, and 4. And in the state board, we have a lot of authority, but it doesn't always get used. And I'll tell you why. We're in a minority, just like the House. There's 3 of us Republicans, and the rest are all Democrats out of 9, and they vote together, they stick together, they toe the line together, and they make it hard. But one thing that we are able to do that makes an impact is I'm the only one on the board that has kids currently in school. So I get to use the parent perspective. And sometimes that pulls on the heartstrings of the Democrats to get them to not implement a lot of their, policies, or at least to think twice. It has become harder because they know they're in an election year. They know we're moving closer to a presidential election in November. So they're going to just start closing ranks and towing the line. But on the state board, some of our rules we've been able to make have been very beneficial to charter schools, very beneficial to the enrichment programs. So we have a lot of kids that are utilizing enrichment now. There's 30 some homeschool enrichment programs that have popped up. They've been helping a lot of kids get out of public school, get into private schools. We have a lot of kids that have choice. And it's important because in the Latino community or Hispanic community, depending where you're at, one of the biggest things that parents talk about is they want to know how to get generational wealth. Well, the only way you get generational wealth is through education, because education is freedom. And if you get educated, I call that the greatest equalizer. So if you have that opportunity, and we're giving parents opportunity, then they're going to see change. And that is one of the areas in education we can make an impact. But what's more important, Hugo, is that a lot of folks, and Nicholas, don't understand is local control and home rule, cities and counties, is so powerful in Colorado. In our state constitution, our local school boards have more power than they know. So, for instance, if you got a county that has a conservative board and it's a 5-member board, it's the rule of 3. You have 3 Republicans, they can implement any kind of curriculum they want. They don't need our approval because in the state constitution, we can't tell them how to implement or activate curriculum. So one of my biggest things going around is more than just being the state board of ed member, going through the motions and the meetings, is I go to every district. I try to meet with every single conservative board member to help them understand their power. We don't do that well as Republicans. In elections, we don't do well either. We look at whenever we see a board member, we'll complain about curriculum in a school board, but we don't go and find somebody to run for the board. And then say the chance we find someone to run for the board, we don't fund that person. We tell them, okay, go out and, self fund or go talk to a few of your friends. And Democrats do well is they look at as funding a candidate as an investment. They're going to fund that school board candidate because that's their legislature in 8 years. We look at it as an expense report. Like, all right, man, here's $100. I got to give you $100. Good luck. But Democrats will overfund it. So my purpose more so on the board has been to educate, educate, educate.
Okay, so
Rally the troops. Very nice.
I have one quick question that popped up because somebody brought it up, and I'd like for you to address it because you're being accused of missing a lot of board meetings, and I'd like you to address that.
I'm at every board meeting. I haven't missed any board meeting.
Okay.
Maybe I might have missed one, but no, I'm at every board meeting.
Yeah. Well, this person was saying that you've missed more than you've attended, and so
Are you
I
sure
did.
are you sure they're not talking about, because there's another candidate in the CD3, Ron Hanks, and a letter came out about how he missed 20% of the time he was in the legislature. Is
Now,
that
this was particularly directed at you as a candidate for CD3. They were saying that as a board member on the Board of Education that you had missed a lot of board meetings, and so you weren't. They were implying that you weren't even doing your job as a member of the board. So
with the work you said that you've been doing, I mean, that must be stinging because, like you said, is that we've got all of these accusations flying, and it takes a lot of effort just to deal with them. We're not even dealing with our opponents at that point. So
exactly.
yeah, please.
No, no, exactly. And I'll tell you, it's interesting because I don't know where they're getting that from. But I'll tell you, when I jumped into this race, I've learned on our side, there's a lot of folks that love this idea of don't let a few facts get in the way of a good story.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of them that are storytellers out there.
You think we've been lied about the media this whole time? We think we'd be tired of spinning them ourselves. At that point.
I know what what's crazy is I was just in Montrose County, and a guy came up to me and he was telling me he goes, you know what? I go, what? He goes, you're like the CD3 Donald Trump. He goes, everywhere we turn, there's. He goes, the more stories they make about you, the more they talk about you. He goes, and I just love how you just brush it off and you're like, yeah, whatever, moving on. They have no clue what they're talking about. But
Well, you don't cast pearls before swine. It's like you've definitely, and being, like I said, being in the military, that stays with you. You don't be late to formation. You don't. This is not. You don't pick up these habits when you get out of the military. They stay with
Yeah.
you. You remember the punishments when you didn't follow them. Then, not saying you
exactly.
did, but that's we all know what gets beaten to our heads during that time, and it's for our benefit. So the idea that you wouldn't have discipline with something you've dedicated your life to, um, doesn't really sound sensible, at least from the little bit that I know. And I always make sure to tell people, trust your heart and your head working together. That's your gut. Trust that.
So, Stephen, are there any forums or debates scheduled for you guys in CD3?
Well, there's six of us on that are running, and we've already had four or five forums, if I'm correct.
Uh
And
huh.
not every candidate kind of makes it to everyone. I've been called Old Faithful because I go to every one of them, no matter where they're at. I'll tell you, because if you don't meet the voters where they're at, how are they going to know what we stand for?
Yeah.
And I mean, there's one candidate, he hasn't went to any of them, and I don't know, I just don't get it. But there should be one coming up. It'll be on June 2nd, um, or no, June 4th, Tuesday in Durango, and it's being put on by CD3. So it's the
Okay.
official one. And the one candidate that hasn't shown up to any of them is not confirmed, is my understanding, that he'll be at this one. So I joke and I tell people, well, he's probably in his basement playing with his playing with his GI Joes and his tidy whities.
Uh,
Maybe he's playing online games with Joe Biden in his own basement.
Yeah, exactly right.
so, do you know if that's going to be live streamed?
I'm told it is. I'm
Very
told
Okay.
it is
nice.
because it's a small venue they're holding it in. It's not a large venue, so it won't fit a lot of people, but it it,
Well,
it should be live streamed.
if you would keep us in mind, send us the info for that because we'd like to tune into that.
Yeah.
I know some folks down there in the Durango area, but it's. I think it's important to have something before the actual primary vote. So, as of right now, there's a total of six, including you, on the
Yep,
ballot.
I'm your top line. I won the assembly. I took top line at the assembly, won it, and then the next person on the ballot I think is Ron Hanks. He barely made the ballot, and then you have Russ Andrews who petitioned, and then you have Curtis McCracken who petitioned, and then you have Lou Webb who petitioned, and then you have Jeff Hurd, who petitioned from Grand Junction. So that's kind of the little bit of a layout of it. It's really interesting. It's fun. I know the state party created an endorsement process. I
Mhm.
don't understand how that's going to work. I'll tell you guys this. I'm grassroots. I believe in, you meet people where they're at. All politics start at the precinct, the lowest level, and you work your way up. And I believe in leading from the front, not from the rear. And I took a stance recently and said the grassroots has spoken. They worked hard. I went to almost 18 or 17 of the county assemblies between me and my staff. I made sure I connected with almost everybody on the delegate list. I just believe they've already made their decision, and for us to create a questionnaire or some sort of process that's arbitrary, it just usurps what the grassroots has done, and we can never do that. We can never rob our party of its voice. We've already robbed ourselves by fighting each other of some of our dignity. Now we need to come together. We need to work as a team, and we need to win, and we need to legislate.
So is there any polling data for District 3? Have you
You
heard
know
or
what? I wish there was. It'd be really cool, but I'll give you some numbers about 28% Latino Hispanic. So it is recently now a new Hispanic almost district. I don't know how they make their numbers up, but it wasn't that 8 years ago. After redistricting, it grew with more Latinos, 18% veteran, which is huge.
Wow.
So I always joke, I tell people I'm from Pueblo and I'm the Hispanic veteran. So I go, you know,
Very nice.
maybe we'll make some history this year. You have Gabe Evans, who's a Army veteran, and he's
Mhm.
Hispanic, running from 8. You have Dave Williams, who's Hispanic, running from 5, and then you have myself, who's Hispanic, running for 3.
Look at
And
that.
Democrats say we're racist, right?
Yeah. And
Racist is in we're winning races.
and Gabe is also former law enforcement, so
Yeah,
he
that's right. Former police officer.
we met him up
Weld
in
County was that we
Welch County when we went to that event that the uh, Patriots were holding up
where
there,
we interviewed Lauren Boebert.
where
There you
we
go,
interviewed
translate.
Lauren and some other candidates that are now no longer in the race. So, just one quick final question for you, and that is, what would be your top priority going to Washington? What would be something that you would want to take there to follow through with?
Well, I have a whole bunch of them, but I'm going to tell you a few of them real quick. One of them is I always hear from people they're going to drain the swamp. And then they get over there and they become a swamp gator or a plug in the swamp.
Mhm.
And there's many ways that we could actually truly drain a swamp. Is if you're a congressman or woman and you believe in doing that, you can get on the ethics committee and you can start making changes. Two, I want to shut the border down. We are seeing more and more terrorists come over from that border, and they're not even when I've heard somebody today call them a newcomer. They're not newcomers; they're illegal
No.
immigrants. Call it what it is, and it's a
It's
reality. And we need to shut the border down, and we need to not be afraid. Fear is a reaction. I want you guys to remember this. Fear is a reaction, and courage is a decision. We have to choose to be courageous, enforce the current laws that we have on hand, send them back, and have them come over the proper way. I am Hispanic, and I am saying that, and that is not racist. It is not prejudice. If I went and stole something, if I broke the law, I would be a criminal. It would be breaking the law. We need to start becoming a law and order state in a country again. We are losing who we are.
Well, regarding the state of DC, I read something very interesting on X a couple days ago, and somebody said, and it made a lot of sense. It said, "Why are we calling DC the swamp? The swamp is an ecosystem that is necessary for the planet to thrive and flourish." He said, "We should be calling it the sewer." That's
Or or the cesspool.
that
There
that'd
we go.
be
Yeah.
that would be more appropriate because the swamp just doesn't fit now that I read that. So maybe we could start something new and start changing the narrative on that. Instead of the
Yeah.
swamp, it's going to
Then,
be the sewer.
then Steven could add plumber to his long list of titles. There we
There
go.
you
Look at
go, right?
that.
You know what? I need to do a picture with the snake. You know those snakes, the drain
Oh yeah,
cleaner,
the same picture.
with the
That'd be
snake and
brilliant.
Drano. A
There you
There
snake
we
go.
and
go.
Drano. I'm on my way
Snake
to
DC.
DC
There we go. It'll be
Drain the
like
sewer or the
with a
septic
pair of
tank.
waiters. I need some waiters, right? Some waiters. I'd,
Or the
I'd be,
septic
beautiful.
tank.
That's amazing.
but you know,
Uh,
and those are my priorities, guys. And honestly, I mean, there's many more. We need to protect our rural way of life. We need to protect our Second Amendment rights. We need to make sure that we're fighting for those. And honestly, one of the things we're losing right now is we're losing our country, and we
yeah.
got to come together. So I challenge you guys with this, like I challenge everybody. And you know, I know you don't live in my district, but there's many ways you could support the movement. Consider donating to the Freedom Fighter Movement, which is Stephen Varela for Congress for Colorado Congressional District 3. You can find me at Stephen Varela for Colorado.com. Please check me out, look at my priorities, learn more about me. And don't be afraid. We're the future, guys. I'm 39 years old. I'm not going anywhere. I
Very
told one of,
nice.
I told the Democrat today, I go, he was an older guy. He said, I'll outlast you. I go, and I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Well, as
Well,
30-year-old as well, I couldn't agree more. And Hugo's going to stay right with us. He's going to be around for a long time as well, no matter how much he can, how much he may not like it.
well, my mom's leading the way. She just turned 99, so I guess I'm in line to be around for a while.
There you go. So we'll be
Uh,
with you, Stephen.
so okay, just give you an opportunity to for any final thoughts or words to the audience about your candidacy and what you'd like for them to know about you.
No, definitely. The final thoughts is please, guys, check me out. Remember, only together we can do this. Today, we are no longer rhinos. We're no longer far right. We're no longer crazy. We're Americans. We're Republicans, and we need to take back our country. And we need to fight for it, tooth and nail, and it doesn't matter. And also, if you're looking to donate to me, don't make your checks for more than $3,300 because I can't take more than that. Okay, Hugo?
All right, sounds good.
We'll let him know.
I'll let the boss know.
Well, it's
All right.
Can you
fantastic
tell I've
having
been
you.
at this? Can you tell I've been at this a little bit?
Yep. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Stephen, it was
Well,
fantastic having you. Absolutely
great
fantastic.
having you on. We wish you the best in the campaign trail and touch base with us again, and we'll be keeping an eye out on what happens in this upcoming primary.
Hey, thank you guys. I appreciate you so much. Anytime you want me to come on, send me an invite and I'd love to come visit with you guys.
All
There
right.
you go,
Well,
Stephen.
Bye bye.
Godspeed, and
Nice
we'll
to
talk to
meet
you
you.
soon. Take care.
Absolutely.
Bye bye.
Take care. That was Stephen Varela, everybody.
Stephen Varela, one of the candidates for 3D CD3. He's the Hispanic candidate, veteran, and he's a fine candidate. So don't believe what you're hearing out there on social media, and do
Trust
your
it.
own due diligence about the
Trust it.
candidates and make your own decisions. Don't be influenced by rabble rousers on social media,
Yep.
because I don't like that. So anyway,
Who does?
all right. So now let's segue into some Colorado happenings, and I'm happy to report one of the things that pleased me was to hear that the bill to ban purchase, sale, and transfer of so-called assault weapons in Colorado has fallen flat on its face, thanks to, we have to say, some Democrats in the Senate, because they actually helped shut it down, and so we won that battle. But there are several other bills on the horizon here. One of them is where they're going to try to require um, gun owners to buy liability insurance, just like
The gun tax.
as if we didn't have enough things to worry about financially. They're going to try to
Yeah, well,
force us gun owners to buy liability insurance.
because why should the poor have guns, according to Democrats?
Exactly. That's, well, we know what their end goal is, and
Exactly.
that's total disarmament. Now, so we won this battle. We're hoping that some of these other bills. There's only a few days left in the session, so hopefully there won't be enough time, or at least there'll be some common sense take place on some of these other bills. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But it was definitely good to see that the bill to ban the purchase, sale, and transfer of so-called assault weapons is being shelved. Now, make no mistake, this is a temporary setback. If the Democrats have strong control next year, they're going to bring it back, and they're going to keep trying.
Yep.
That's how they do. They fail one time and they don't quit. They keep bringing it back. So
That's the thing. Legislative victories have to be backed up by electoral ones. That's what we got to remember.
And the initial vote on that was a 35-27 vote in the House. So it wasn't that big a margin that he got through. But thankfully, there were saner heads in the Senate that said, no, this isn't going to work.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think the election had something to do with it, because
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot more power in gun owners in this state than people think. So
Yeah, we have so many veterans, we have so many ranchers, we have people that know what a gun is. I think most anti-gun attitudes is just ignorance mechanically. The weapon that you saw in that article is the sword and spear of the modern age. This is basically the most basic weapon that you can have nowadays and be on equal par with the people who would try to attack you. A pistol is a sidearm. It is not something that is inherently going to save your life. Something like a semi-automatic rifle, that is something that you can have confidence in. Women can handle it perfectly well. Unwieldy pistols is not necessarily always safe for women. So just people, do your research and educate your fellow people involved, especially if they're Democrats. Education is the key.
a lot of people don't realize, but that bill, had it gone through, would have banned up to 80% of the weapons out there.
It would have banned semi-automatic pistols. You'd be left with revolvers.
Yep.
Which is ridiculous.
It's just,
you can't survive with a revolver.
It's ridiculous. And number one, it would have been unconstitutional. So even if they passed it, I think it would have get struck down, but you still have to go through all that, rigmarole to try to undo what people do. And so,
you were so right, Hugo. You were actually completely right that this is an electoral situation. They know that they would lose votes if they push this through now, and they don't want to do that. The article effectively said so, and Ms. Gonzalez, I believe her name is, she basically openly said that, as well as other Democrats. So we can't rely on elections to keep our freedom, people. You got to make sure that we win those elections so that they cannot try this again in the same way. Absolutely. That's what we got to remember.
All right, let's jump over to immigration. And I came across a very interesting PragerU video that's it's about 4 minutes or almost 5 minutes long. Let's take a look at that, and then we can have a quick discussion on that.
I recently watched a group of protesters, most of them young, denouncing President Donald Trump's immigration.
I just needs to buffer a bit.
Can you guys hear that okay?
We can hear it. Yeah, we can hear it just fine.
It's buffering.
Policies. They were waving Mexican flags and shouting, "Si se puede!" Yes, we can. This is now the rallying cry of the open borders left, but it wasn't always. In fact, I wondered if a single person at the protest knew where it came from. The slogan first became famous 50 years ago, thanks to Cesar Chavez. He was the founder of the United Farm Workers Union. When Chavez said, "Si se puede," he meant something very different. Yes, we can seal the borders. Cesar Chavez hated illegal immigration. He was Hispanic, obviously, and definitely on the left, but he fought to keep illegal Mexican immigrants out of this country. He understood that peasants from Latin America will always work for less than Americans will. That's why employers prefer them. Chavez knew that. As long as we have a poor country bordering California, he once explained, it's going to be very difficult to win strikes. In 1969, Chavez led a march down the center of California to protest the hiring of illegal immigrant produce pickers. Marching alongside him was Democratic Senator Walter Mondale and the Reverend Ralph Abernathy, the longtime aide to Martin Luther King. 10 years later, Chavez dispatched armed union members into the desert to assault Mexican nationals who were trying to sneak across the border. Chavez's men beat immigrants with chains and whips made of barbed wire. Illegal aliens who dared to work as scabs had their houses firebombed and their cars burned. Chavez wasn't embarrassed about any of this. He bragged about it. No matter. Chavez remains a progressive hero. President Obama declared his birthday a commemorative federal holiday. It's an official day off in a half a dozen states. There's a college named after him and dozens of public schools. Cesar Chavez's life is a reminder of how much the left has changed and how quickly. Until recently, most Democrats agreed with Chavez. They opposed unchecked immigration because they knew it hurt American workers, and they were right. One study by a Harvard economist examined the effects of the mass migration of Cuban refugees to this country in 1980, the so-called Mariel boat lift. He found that American workers in Miami with a high school education saw their wages fall by more than 30% after the refugees arrived. If you believe in supply and demand, this is not surprising. After the fall of Saigon in 1975, Democratic Governor Jerry Brown opposed letting Vietnamese refugees into California on the grounds that the state already had enough poor people. As he put it at the time, there's something a little strange about saying, let's bring in 500,000 more people when we can't take care of the 1 million Californians out of work. First-term Senator Joe Biden of Delaware agreed. He introduced federal legislation to curb the arrival of the Vietnamese. 2 decades later, leading Democrats were still wary of mass immigration, especially illegal immigration. As Bill Clinton put it in the 1995 State of the Union address, Americans are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public services they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. No prominent Democrat would say anything like that today without being denounced as a racist. Clinton got a standing ovation. As late as 2006, there were still liberals who cared about the economic effects of immigration, legal or illegal. Immigration reduces the wages of domestic workers who compete with immigrants, explained economist Paul Krugman in the New York Times. We'll need to reduce the inflow of low-skilled immigrants. Mainly that means better controls on illegal immigration. That same year, Senator Hillary Clinton voted for a fence on the Mexican border. So did Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer and 23 other Senate Democrats. Not anymore. 20 years after Bill Clinton told Americans they had the right to be upset about illegal immigration, his wife scolded the country for enforcing border controls. So what changed? Not the economics of it. The law of supply and demand remained in effect. It's not a coincidence that as illegal immigration surged, wages for American workers stagnated. What changed is that Democrats stopped caring about those workers, about the middle class, really. Why? Here's the answer in 4 simple facts. 1. According to a recent study from Yale, there are at least 22 million illegal immigrants living in the United States. 2. Democrats plan to give all of them citizenship. Read the Democrats' 2016 party platform. 3. Studies show the overwhelming majority of first-time immigrant voters vote Democrat. 4. The biggest landslide in American presidential history was only 17 million votes. Do the math. The payoff for Democrats? Permanent electoral majority for the foreseeable future. In a word, power. That's the point, no matter what they tell you. American workers be damned. I'm Tucker Carlson.
There you go. That's
There it is. Well, Hugo, you want to take that first, or you want me to?
yeah. Well, I 100% agree. It's about power. That's really, in a nutshell, what this whole movement is, and I think they could have taken it one step further. There is a globalist entity to this thing, and that is that there are globalists that want to destroy us from within, and they do that by flooding us with illegal immigrants who then can be transformed into alleged voters. I'm not so convinced that there's such a large majority of them that will vote Democrat, even if given citizenship, because
that might have been true up into the 90s and over the 2000s, but with the change that they've had, the kind of class that most immigrants want to move into, they know that Democrats are attacking, that middle class. So what's the point of moving on up if it means that you have to, you get abandoned by your party? So people either have to stay poor or they become Republicans.
Well, and that's part of our agenda as a podcast, is that to educate the Hispanic voters to realize that they're voting against their own best interest, both for their businesses, their families, their education. Democrats, just like the black population, they want to keep Hispanics poor and downtrodden and dependent. They don't want Hispanics to climb up the economic ladder and become self-sufficient, because they know if they do, they're going to vote with Republican policies.
Absolutely. And it also is just degrading. It's a belief that we deserve to be in this status of illegal immigrants and not citizens. To me, when I was growing up, I always did not like the association with Hispanics and illegals, because we have a lot of, Eastern European illegal immigrants. We have a lot of Asian illegal immigrants. Why is it always us? Well, you guys are the majority. Well, the reason for that was because of the economic policies that Doug Carlson was just talking about, is that we were the ones that people expected to work for less. When Indian immigrants come here, for example, they often have higher levels of education. A lot of Asian immigrants, they educate themselves very, very fast. They are very much oriented toward that. We Hispanics are in that middle ground where we want to do better, but we absolutely are willing to work really hard at the ground level for the sake of usually the children So they know that they've got us under control with the children in the schools and with the parents in the workplaces, and being illegal just instantly puts the state over both of those parties. Now you are completely subservient to the government, who could do whatever they want to you because of the status they've forced you to be in. That's why I tell people, do not accept yourself as an illegal status. Get legal, do it as best you can, as fast as you can, because if you believe you're an American, you deserve that. You deserve that for yourself. Find out if you're an American and deserve it if you're there. Do not listen to Democrats say you deserve to be illegal.
Well, interestingly enough, out of the immigrants, and this is a little known fact, Asian immigrants are the wealthiest among us
Truth.
in the sense they come here for the opportunity and then they take advantage of the opportunity, and they sacrifice for a while, they educate themselves, and they climb up the economic ladder very quickly. So other immigrant groups could take a lesson from the Asians that come here,
Very much
because
so.
they have done very well for themselves. And if you look at the economic numbers, it's very well borne out that Asian Americans, immigrants, have succeeded far greater than any other demographic.
I think
And
one reason for that is because Asian communities quite often are not as static. They often interact with other Asian communities. They often uh, put themselves in with wider American society, whereas us Hispanics, we can often fall into our own communities, our own safe zones, our own safe spaces, and we're not as willing to put ourselves out there. Like Ronald Reagan said, let us be shy no longer.
yep. All right. So I want to close the show with an interesting story that I ran across today, and that is about a Colorado high school, which happens to be in Douglas County, very Republican Douglas County, which is the Douglas County High School. On Wednesday, they moved the location of its upcoming graduation after teachers and union leaders raised concerns that holding the ceremony at the U.S. Air Force Academy created hurdles that could have prevented undocumented students and their families from attending the celebration. So, the new venue for the May 22nd commencement is going to be Echo Park Stadium in Parker, which, quote, allows us to ensure all who wish to attend can do so and celebrate with our Huskies. So the premise on this was that in order to get into the Air Force Academy, of course, you have to have valid identification. So if you're an undocumented person, you're not likely to have it. So basically, they're they've basically caved to undocumented people, um, as opposed to having their ceremony at a very nice venue at the Air Force Academy.
Great opportunity
They're
to
now
miss
going
out
to
on.
have it at a third-rate park in Parker, so that there's no such problems with it. I don't know what you guys think about that, but
That
I think that's just ridiculous.
it's the encapsulation of what these accommodations actually do. They degrade us. A beautiful location, United States Air Force, it's a beautiful spot. It could inspire these high schoolers maybe to become pilots. We need good men in the air and women in the Air Force, as Hugo, as you were. This is taking away something from everybody that did things right for the sake of a few people who didn't even probably ask for this, who did it or are currently doing it the wrong or not perfect way, however you want to look at it. This is in a nutshell what we are tired of. We don't need special accommodation for our few relatives who are in the middle of something difficult for this, because we know we're ruining it for everybody else. We don't want that. They should have had it at
Mhm.
the Air Force Academy, beautiful place. And it's just that we're given something lesser because we have to accommodate people who are doing things not the right way. Happening all across the country. It needs to stop.
And the thing about it is, the article doesn't really talk about specifically who complained or who was.
Yeah.
Here's the quote on there. It says, "Unfortunately, there has been increased scrutiny by some in our community, by
Whoever
some,
they may be.
as well as members of the media regarding the location of our graduation
I
ceremony.
didn't know CNN had high schoolers. No wonder. Maybe the quality of their reporting, now I get it. But they don't have a horse in this race, and yet they're trying to push it on who? The kids. That's
Yeah.
the teenagers. That was who suffer.
So
I
they,
remember being there not too long ago.
yeah.
Back then too.
So it says here that people who aren't U.S. citizens but hold foreign passports must present those passports ahead of time and go through a background clearance that could take up to 72 hours. That would be
Oh
a
no,
undue burden.
no.
Drivers might be asked to show their proof of insurance and vehicle registration, and all cars are subject to search.
Yeah,
So
it's a U.S. military installation. Like us,
exactly.
I mean, yeah. Don't take that away to just because there are some people who might not need to be there. I'm sure they got a live stream or something. Like this did not need to happen. It
And
really
somebody actually asked, should this be required to access an Air Force Academy? No, let's
Yeah.
just open the gates and let everybody in. I mean, what the hell?
Oh my god. To
Jeez.
be fair, if anybody can handle themselves, it's the boys in the Air Force. But
Absolutely.
you would know, Hugo.
So anyway,
Beautiful.
I thought that was kind of I just stumbled across that this afternoon. I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought that was kind of
I couldn't
ridiculous.
believe my ears when you told it to me either, and then I saw it myself. It's yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, it's kind of funny thing to end on. It's like
yeah,
it's just silly at the end of the day, people. It's silly.
absolutely. All right. Well, we're up against the clock. It's been a fun show. Hope everyone enjoyed what we had with Stephen Varela.
Yes.
I don't know if
Let us
Peter
know what
has
you
any
thought.
closing thoughts that he'd like to
Yeah,
add,
please.
but we've got some good shows coming up. We're hoping to have the president of the Hispanic Chamber in Denver uh, on one of our upcoming shows to talk about Hispanic businesses and what issues are important to them. And I will add to this, Mr. Ferrafino is a friend and he's a Democrat. So don't accuse us of being biased.
No, we have tons of Democrat friends, tons of friends from all over the place, and get yourself some friends all over the place. A harmony can only exist if everyone's singing together.
Absolutely. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for tuning in tonight. Again, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us, go to our website. If you're inclined to donate, we can use the funds to grow this show. And definitely there's a page there where you can give us feedback. So we encourage you to do that. And we're welcoming all comments. Keep it nice, and we'll definitely respond to you if you have something good to say. So
Yes.
thank
Please
you all
like,
for
comment, subscribe.
tuning in tonight. God bless you. God bless America. Nick, good night.
Good night, Hugo. God.